Hey guys, it's me again, Kamiar-Rückert from the Psychosomatic Student Group Riga, and today I will give a student lecture on theories of psychosomatic medicine. Why do we suffer? This lecture will be kind of brief, and I plan to go into detail on each of them in a separate video. Let me just give you my two sources right away, and again, I'm sorry that both of them are in German. Unfortunately, there's not so much English literature out there. But if you come across a good book, please make sure to mention it below in the comment section. That being said, let's jump right in. Conversion model and neurosis, theories of disease-specific repression, theories of object relation, theories of the de- and resomatization, Biphasic Repression, Alexithymia Concept, the stress model, and the Biopsychosocial Model. And this is just an overview. So why are there so many models in psychosomatic medicine? It is essentially because Freud started it, and since he was not right about everything, people kept adding more and more. Some focus more on the biology, while others focus more on the relationship and early social interactions. It already illustrates the complexity of the human psyche. And as Karl Popper puts it, whenever a theory appears to you as the only possible one, take this as a sign you have neither understood the theory nor the problem which it was intended to solve. But don't be afraid of the amount, because you might think, damn, there are a lot of theories, but on the other hand, they all have something in common and often share a general idea, and we'll get back to this common ground at the end of this lecture. Let us take a look at the conversion model and neurosis. Chronologically, it was the first and was invented by this fellow here, Sigmund Freud. The model is still used as the basis to explain clinical symptoms with psychological origin. The word conversion means transformation and refers to the transformation of unconscious conflicts within a person. As Freud put it, the formation of symptoms is the attempted solution for a conflict. The symptoms become symbols for the conflict. The textbook Basic Psychosomatic and Psychotherapy gives a wonderful example of a man who overhears his wife having an affair and suddenly develops a sudden loss of hearing. The conflict tries to attempt to solve itself by temporal deafness. I don't want to hear anything about this anymore, as the metaphorical message of the situation. Similar examples are tense muscles in the shoulder region when work and pressure becomes too overwhelming. The translated German saying, "I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders," is attempted to give the attempted solution a linguistic basis. I'm sure you can think of many other examples. Later on, two American scientists, Engel and Schmale, examined the conversion model, according to the chicken and egg problem, and found out that clinical symptoms might be due to an innervation disorder that will later be associated with emotions and conflicts. Thereby, the term somatopsychic psychosomatic disorders was born. Thus, psychosomatic medicine stretches the relationship between the body and the mind. It is not a one-way street. Franz Alexander added a second neurosis to Freud's model of conversion neurosis. According to his view, two psychodynamic symptoms are present: the above mentioned and the symptoms of the so-called vegetative neurosis or organ neurosis. Here, the development of clinical symptoms is due to chronologically suppressed emotional stress. This distress leads to a disruption in the body's function, or in the body function. If you watched my first video, Is Psychosomatic Even Real?, you might remember the vegetative nervous system being divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. In Alexander's theory, the organism attempts to sustain the homeostasis and adapts one of the two unhealthy states. The body the body has two basic options: activating the sympathetic nervous system on the left or the parasympathetic on the right. If we have a chronic elevation of the sympathicus, the body will remain in a state of alert, ready to attack, yet never able to. The symptoms may lead to high blood pressure and panic attacks. The opposite can develop too. In the parasympathicus, the body remains in a state of withdrawal as a way to retreat from the conflict, and stays in a state of dependence. A lower pulse and lower excitability might be a clinical feature. The next theory is based on the British school of psychoanalysis, and two children psychoanalysts mainly influenced it: Melanie Klein on the left and David Winnicott on the right. Both of them put the key emphasis on the early relation of the child and the attachment figure, which they refer to as the object. This early relationship then forms the basis of personality and future relationships. Closeness, attachment, autonomy, envy, and greed are the subjects this theory deals with. It assumes that the ideal picture of the attachment figures are integrated within the child, and later on the negative objects are integrated as well. A dual picture of reality arises. A healthy adult will later be able to see the negative and the positive traits of other people and itself. The theory of de- and resomatization refers to the natural process of life. As we go through our development, a process of desomatization takes place. After birth, psychological processes and somatic processes are unconscious, yet they are expressed in a somatic way. A baby cries when it is hungry. As the child grows up, the process of desomatization kicks in, and an ego is formed. Thus, the baby is able to verbalize his wishes. The crying stops, and the baby may say, "I am hungry," or let's say the child may say, "I am hungry." Exposure to psychosocial stressful situations reactivates this somatic communication. We regress into our childish ways, and this process then is referred to resomatization. And it leads to behavior patterns becoming more aware. Thus, anxious symptoms such as heart palpitation, tachycardia are now seen as organ dysfunctions rather than simple anxiety. The next theory is mainly influenced by Alexander Mitscherlich, who as a professor rose to a certain fame by being a figure in the German student protests, as well as writing a book with his wife about Germany's inability to mourn. The idea is quite simple. Mitscherlich knew human life consists of somatic and psychological processes. If a conflict arises, we try to solve it with our mind. Stress and conflict lead to neurotic symptoms. We repress the conflict with psychological defense mechanisms. This is the first stage. When the conflict becomes too overwhelming, the second phase begins. The defense mechanism of somatization starts. The patient escapes into illness. Clinical symptoms such as back pain, sudden loss of hearing, headache, and so on may form. The process of repression into a neurosis and then into an illness is referred to as a biphasic repression. The sixth concept arose in France. According to this theory, patients suffer from psychosomatic illness, have a special personality structure. They are unable to recognize their emotions, and they cannot verbalize them. It is the inability to identify and describe emotions in the self. And I'm sorry, my translation on the topic might be a bit off. I tried my best to look it up in English, in the English-speaking literature, but I couldn't find any translations. So, operational thinking refers to the before mentioned. It is the inability to access internal processes and emotion. Depersonalization refers to a broader range of disorders and includes a partial psychological immaturity, an emotional emptiness in the object relation, an inability of transference during psychotherapy. The psychosomatic regression refers to the before mentioned regression in the D and resomatization. Emotional conflicts are expressed in clinical symptoms rather than being verbalized. The projective duplication refers to two things: seeing oneself as well as others in a stereotypical manner and denying one's own originality and the originality of others. And today, alexithymia is researched on and found in a majority of psychosomatic patients. Yet, it is present in healthy as well as in suffering patients. Thus, it is more regarded as a risk factor. The stress model is probably the most known to medical students since it is part of the pathophysiology course. H. Selve defines stress as any demand to the organism, whether it's an internal or external stimulus, and the body's job is to keep a homeostasis. Selve defines between eustress and distress, the good stress and the bad one. Eustress has a stimulating function. It keeps you going, while distress is the unhealthy stress experienced during exam periods or bullying in school. If you are interested in this idea, you can take a look at my other video again, Is Psychosomatics Real? Well, once the distress becomes overwhelming because physical symptoms will develop, once the distress becomes overwhelming, physical symptoms will develop. His idea follows three stages. When distress occurs, we are in an alarm state. Our performance decreases. In a process of adaptation, our performance increases. We are in a state of resistance. Since we cannot resist, we tend to fall in a state of exhaustion. Our organism breaks down. The burnout syndrome is one of these reactions to chronic stress. The last concept is the Biopsychosocial Model and was mainly introduced by George Engel and advocated by Ture von Uexküll in Germany. Engel became one of the most known representatives of psychosomatic medicine in America. The model stresses the importance of three entities: the biology with molecules and pathogens such as viruses and bacteria, as well as the psychological and social aspect. All three contribute to an illness. The community, social life, love life, and the personality play a key role in the development of illness and especially its recovery. Illness is always multifactorial. This model not only emphasizes the importance of psychosomatic medicine, but also defines it. It stretches the idea that we treat the patient, not the illness. Psychosomatic medicine becomes the science of the interaction between biopsychosocial processes and their meaning for illness. So, let us summarize psychosomatic medicine and the given theories. Psychosomatic medicine deals with the biopsychosocial interactions. An illness may be psychosomatic or somatopsychic. There's no general treatment, but the interaction and unique experience of the patient is at the core of the treatment. The different models of psychosomatic medicine build on each other, are intertwined, or sometimes oppose each other, but all give a certain view to the struggle of being human. Unconscious conflicts, early childhood memories, personality types, or the exposure to chronic stress leads to the formation of symptoms, either as a symbol or as a defense mechanism.